Hello, everybody. I am Zenith Rule, and welcome back to the Disney Debate, where Cat Mac, Y2Staller, and I talk about many things such as, Disney products, Disney films, Disney news in the media, things that are happening related to Disney. However, before I introduce my co-hosts, I just wanted to have a brief introduction because today marks a very special occasion. This is our 50th episode of the Disney Debate.
Woo!
Now, yeah, this is a big event. Now, when I first started this podcast, I believe either 4 or 5 years ago, I did not expect really a lot of things to happen with it because I was running a couple of podcasts at the same time just to try to get my narrative voice down and just to try to improve the quality of the videos that I had been putting out at the time. I was a very amateur filmmaker at the time. I was running a movie podcast, I was running a weekly manga podcast, and I was thinking, well, I really like Disney movies and I wanted to do something with that, but I didn't have a co-host. So I met this person at MagFest, and she was incredibly into Disney. She loved Disney stuff, and we had been very, very good friends ever since we met at MagFest. So I decided to approach her and ask her if she wanted to do a podcast. She said yes, and we sat down and decided, how things were going to go. And for a year, we did just that. Me and Kat, we sat down and we watched these really, really old school Disney movies. We covered everything from the 30s and the 40s, and we had a blast doing it. And, doing that initial Disney Debate podcast was so much fun, mostly because personally, I just wanted to get something out. I wanted to practice and try new things. And admittedly, back then, we didn't have the best quality editing software. I didn't have the best quality recording software, and I didn't have the best quality just everything in general. So, I mean, it does show its age when you look back at those past episodes. But that year it was so damn fun because I was doing something that I enjoyed with a friend that, I had known for a long time, and we were just having fun with it. We didn't care about viewership or whatever. We just wanted to do something fun, and somehow a lot of people really seemed to like it. And people like Ned Riley and Nicole Spadaro and all the other people on the Disney Debate Facebook group just really latched onto it. And Ned created the group for us and started to really push the debate. And I really, really enjoyed that. Kat and I, we had such fun doing this for that year. Unfortunately, at that time, Blip was starting its underground purge. Here's something that we really didn't talk about a lot on the show, but after our anniversary video, I got a message from Blip. This was 2 years before they started actually cutting people from the site. They started to tell me that they didn't want any audio-related content. All they wanted from me was video content, which admittedly, at the time, I still wasn't that good. I was only doing okay at the moment, and I was using these podcasts as a way to get myself practice, and they were helping me do better. But Blip was basically just telling me flat out that they did not want the Disney Debate. They did not want my podcasts, and I didn't know what to do. YouTube was a place that I hadn't gone to from the beginning because they were giving a lot of copyright issues even from images, even from the still images of the old titles of the weekly manga update. And so I had decided not to put my stuff on YouTube, and we were trying to figure out, okay, what do we do with this show? Do we continue the Disney debate? And after a while, I mean, we tried various avenues. We tried SoundCloud, but there was an upload limit. We tried quite a few things, and we still had to upload the entire backlog, which at this point was almost 40 episodes. And at this point, we were just like, do we continue the show? Well, we decided, after all this trouble, that it just kind of wasn't worth it. And we let it sit for a little bit. A couple people were upset with the way things were going. And there was a lot of, behind the scenes, a lot of stress, because we were trying to make this happen. And it just wasn't happening because the people at Blip were being such dicks. And again, this is stuff that probably wasn't really public at the time. And now it is because, 2 years later, they started The Purge. I was cut a year from this time, from Blip. So a year from the time where they completely sabotaged our show, they cut my show from Blip. And so I started putting up all my content on YouTube, including the old school Disney debates. And at that time, I started talking with my friend Eric, who is also a friend of me and Kat. And we were like, okay, what are we going to do with the Disney debate? Kat was very busy at the time. I didn't really want to bother her with too much. I know she had a lot going on with Applebee's, and in general, it was, our schedules were very, very different. So I approached Eric and I said, okay, would you be willing to do this with me? Because I know you haven't done, I know you are free at the time, and I want to see if you want to do this. And it was at that time where we started the second iteration of the Disney debate, which was very short-lived. I think we only did like 3 episodes, but this was at the same time that we were doing our gaming podcast, and we were just trying to get some content out there to just bridge the gap while I put all my backlog to YouTube. And also at the time, we wanted to change up the Disney debate. We wanted to get it to where we could actually show video footage from the films we were talking about. Because in the initial version of the Disney debates, there was stuff that we kept talking about, like The Sword and the Rose. There was that fake-looking boulder, and I couldn't show you that because it was a podcast. So we wanted to see if we could do video overlay or video clips. But that got us in trouble with YouTube, because even like video or overlay, they kept calling copyright on. And we won eventually. Like, it doesn't take long, but it still blocked these videos from the audience that we were aiming for. So, after a little bit of time, we had some scheduling conflicts. We put it on hold for a bit, and we waited. I mean, we were all very busy people. I had history of One Piece at this point, and Kat and Eric had their own lives to consider, so we just kind of waited. And then the people from the Disney Debate Facebook groups, they started messaging us and wondering, like, okay, what's going on with this? Are you guys going to continue this? And what's going to happen? And it was because they had such support for the show that we decided, after I finally finished putting up all the backlog of the episodes to YouTube and all of this other stuff, that we would actually continue the show. I had just seen Kat and Eric at New Year's, and we had this big, massive party, and it was a lot of fun, and I had talked to them and I asked them, okay, like, would you guys be willing to start this again with all three of us? And after everyone agreed, and after all the episodes were back up, we figured out a way to make it more acceptable for YouTube, and we also have a backup just in case with VidMe. And now we're where we are today. We're actually very, very steadily putting out content, which I'm really happy about. And it's just, this has been a very long journey. It's been many, many years, and to cover 50 episodes seems like a very small feat, but to me it's enormous considering the amount of problems and the amount of stuff behind the scenes and the amount of bullshit that Blip gave us. It's been a very, very long ride. So let me introduce my co-hosts to give a brief discussion about this before we talk about our movie today. So, first of all, how's it going, Kat?
You made me cry, man. I love you, man. That was beautiful. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Of course I'm doing good. It's our 50th episode. Why wouldn't I be doing good? This is amazing, man. I'm so happy right now. Man, it has been a journey. I did not realize how long that journey was. Thanks for recapping that.
It's been a long time coming, a long time going, and I can't believe it's been like around 4 years, because we started this before History of One Piece, and History of One Piece is 4 years old.
Jeez.
So thinking about that and all the problems that we had to deal with, and the fact that we're still here, we're going strong, and the fan base is stronger than ever, it's crazy. But anyway, Eric, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. I remember when it was right in the middle of our gaming podcast when we were our run for that I remember when you first asked me to come back to come over to do the Disney debate with you. I was a little confused at first, because I'm like, wait, you want me to do this? Like, because, like, I mean, yeah, I have a knowledge of Disney, but, like, I mean, I kind of felt a little unqualified at first, because I know Kat's the one who knows a lot more about Disney than I do. Not to saying I don't know anything, know much, but I do. I mean, I have enough where I could at least, talk about it. But as I got on and as we were discussing stuff, it allowed me to be able to still be able to talk about movies, even though it's specifically about Disney. But along the way, it made me realize how much of a fascinating history that Disney has had over the years, especially with all these different films. And I know quite a bit about these films, and I'm actually looking forward to when we get to the 60s and 70s, because I've actually seen quite a lot of those films, and that is a very interesting time for Disney. And that's like where like a lot of their like major like live action powerhouse movies come in, like a lot of the different stuff like Apple Dumpling Gang and the Herbie movies, and there's like a bunch of other live action stuff, that a lot of the stuff that Disney is kind of want to redo. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, 50 episodes. Wow.
Yeah, I know we've said this a couple times in the past, especially on holidays and big episodes, but this episode in particular means a lot to all three of us because of the history that we've stated before, because you guys have stuck with us, because you demanded that we bring it back, and we are so thankful that we have people like you who are interested in this show, who keep watching, and I'm very impressed that such a small show when it started has grown into something so big. I'm constantly impressed with the view counts for a podcast, for a relatively unknown podcast. And every single time we put out a new episode, I get a lot of interaction from you people, and I'm really happy for that. I'm really happy that we're creating a discussion. since our opinion is not meant to be the be-all, end-all, this is a discussion with you guys, and the fact that you continue it, the fact that you guys have kept this alive, it's impressive to me, and I am so thankful for that. I think I can speak for all of us in saying that we're all very thankful for what you guys have put into this podcast. And we would not be where we are right now without you guys. So thank you.
Thank you guys. Like, give yourselves a round of applause. Like, thank you so much. Oh man, I'm choking up right now. Just, you're all great. I love you all. Mwah. No, I'm not being sarcastic. I truly mean that.
But seriously, thank you all very much for sticking around with us, and hopefully looking forward to do more over the next 50 or 100 or something somewhat episodes.
And here's hoping that the next 50 episodes are as smooth as the last, I think, 12 have been, because we've been just regularly putting out some good content. We have a good, steady schedule. Things are looking up for the podcast, so yeah, let's hope that the next 50 are just as smooth as that. We had planned our 50th episode from the moment we announced our return. We pretty much had the next, everything up to 50 planned in advance so that we knew what we were doing. And when we sat down to talk about what we would do for our 50th episode, we all kind of wanted to do a more modern film, kind of like what me and Eric did for the Saving Mr. Banks episode, which is one of my favorite episodes because we were able to do so much with it. But we wanted to do something modern, and we wanted to do something related to what we were covering at the time, so we sat down and we all decided, after some discussion, that we would do Maleficent, since we'd be covering Sleeping Beauty right around that time. So, yeah, today we're going to be covering the prequel, quote-unquote, to Sleeping Beauty. Last week we covered the original. Here we're going to have a special look at the live-action film that should not have been made, Maleficent. And Maleficent was the first in a series of live-action films that Disney's been putting out right now. They did Cinderella, they did The Jungle Book, they're doing Beauty and the Beast, and we're all going to see that together in a few weeks.
Yay.
But, yay.
Yay.
But it all started with Maleficent, and it all started at a very strange place. Kat, will you do the honors and tell us a little bit about Maleficent?
This movie wants me to summon the fires of hell! Well, no, not that extreme, but anyway. Oh, God. Alright, so... Alright, let's make one thing clear. Out of the three of us, I am the only one that actually saw this movie in theaters when it came out. And to prepare for this, I watched this movie twice. Once with Zen, once with Eric, to prepare them and give context for the movie. I hated watching it then, I hated watching it now, and dear God, this fucking movie. I am angry just thinking about it. Like, this movie, like, I know it was their first attempt at a new age of their live-action stuff, but dear God, what an awful one to start off with. Like, ugh! Anger. But yeah, like Zen said, this is, I guess, a prequel or a retelling or midquel. I don't know what the fuck you want to call it. It's basically Sleeping Beauty if it was told from Maleficent's perspective, even though it's not. And yeah, like,
I think it's more of a like a retelling. Like, it's kind of sets up. It has like stuff that makes it look like a prequel, but then it kind of goes into the regular Sleeping Beauty story. So it's like both.
Yeah, pretty much. I should mention, though, this isn't technically the first live adaptation of a Disney movie. I guess that would go to Jungle Book. Maybe 101 Dalmatians. I'm not sure. But it's not the first, but it's the
I
first.
want to say that too.
Yeah, like it's not the first, but it's the first of this era. And I honestly think they could have gone with something better. They really could have. Like, basically, Maleficent is let's take everything good about Sleeping Beauty and make it shitty, and let's take the bad stuff about Sleeping Beauty and not do much else with it. That's kind of what this movie is. Ugh, God, I don't even know where to start. Like, where should we start, guys? Like, give me a launching
Well,
point.
this movie is a very strange one, because it's both a prequel and kind of a recreation at the same time. It's both a reboot and a remake. It's so weird. Let's start with the story, because the story itself is rather weird in a couple of senses. First of all, I think the weirdest part is that the story is centered on Maleficent. Now, why is that weird? Well, she's not a villain in this. The thing is, they're trying to turn Maleficent into a sympathetic character. And, that's fine. I've seen movies do this, where like, Wicked. Wicked,
Frozen.
not as a book, as a play. Like, there are ways to make villains seem more sympathetic and more complex. And, for a villain that's as big and respected and as all-encompassing evil as Maleficent, going a complex route, which she wasn't a very complex character, going a route to make her more complex, I think, was an interesting approach. The way they went about it is the problem, because, first of all, let's start with the look of the character, which they completely got wrong. Maleficent in this film is a fairy. Let me say that again. Maleficent in this film is a fairy who has dragon wings.
Well, more like griffin wings, but the point is she
Yeah.
has wings for some reason.
And it's a plot point. Like, this is a big point in the film. She has the most beautiful wings, and they're like dragon wings, and they're weird, and apparently she like always loves to go fly, and this and that and the other thing. Like, they really hammer home that these wings are special and that she's the prettiest of fairies. And even at one point during the film, they call her an elf because she has pointy ears in this.
Yeah, somehow, even though we don't ever see elves.
It's like, the characterization of her is really weird. But we'll go more into the character later. But, like, okay, so Maleficent is a fairy. We got that out of the way. The film centers around her in the moors, which are full of like fairy tale creatures and fairies and all this other stuff, and she's flying around and she's having a fun time until all of a sudden man steps in.
Man?
There's a yes, man.
Yes, man.
And would sodomize her hamster if he could.
This guy comes in and he steals something from the forest, and it's a little kid, so I can kind of understand. But so he steals something. She starts talking with him. She teaches him the way of, what's going on in the moors and all this other stuff, and she falls in love with him, and they start kissing, and it's a really forced romance. Then it fast forwards, because this film is extremely fast paced and it keeps time jumping. It goes from them being a couple to years in the future, where apparently his ambition, which we don't see on screen, but the narration tells us because he's ambitious, like, they don't see each other anymore.
He's ambitious
And-
because we say he is.
Exactly. We don't see any of this. There's no scene telling us that, oh, his ambition has caused a rift between them. It's just, oh, yeah, no, we're going to tell you that. But immediately the next scene, he comes back to the moors to meet up with her. So what was the point of causing a rift like that in the first place?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, they kind of hinted at his ambition, stating that he was an orphan, raised on a farm, he had nothing, and that his desire was to one day live in the castle. That's like the most they hinted at, that he was willing to get somewhere that, that glamorous. So, but
Like, it just, to me, it's not enough. They maybe sometimes establish these things, but they move so quickly in the film, especially with these time jumps, that it's hard to really get a grasp of, okay, what the purpose of this plot point is. We have a lot of this flash forward where they're kids, they're in love, they're adults, then he's ambitious and goes away, then he comes back and warns her that they're trying to kill her. Then we have a Narnia-style battle where it's so... This scene was so damn surreal for me first watching. I'm like, are we still in the same movie? Like, if you took the name Maleficent off this could be a different movie. And at that point, I said maybe it'd work, but it's still weird. This was about like 15 minutes in. And at the 15-minute mark, I was just like... If it were not titled Maleficent, maybe. But so we have this big Narnia-style battle where Maleficent is trying to defend the moors against the castle. And, like, she uses her wings to defend against swords. I don't know how that works.
yeah,
But
it's also an inconsistency, because one of the stupid things that they added in this movie was that apparently iron burns fairies. I don't know why that was needed, or, considering it wasn't in the original, but that's a thing.
And it's a plot point. It's a plot point.
Yeah, it's a plot point, but Maleficent still charges into battle and plows through a whole army of knights who are all wearing iron armor and wielding iron weapons. So it doesn't make sense.
And she keeps defending them with her wings, and like she has this army of hellspawn trees. Like, we call them Ents, but they basically look like Diablo from the game Diablo. That's what they look like, only in tree form. Like, none of these creatures look nice. And they're riding on like boars and all this other stuff. Like, this is like the Chronicles of Narnia climax level battle, and it just shoved into the beginning of the film. Like, she just has this big climactic battle, and she does all this stuff with magic, and then they go away, and it's done.
Yeah, not to mention that, it is established that she has magic. So I don't know why she would forcefully, like, fight these, like, fight the humans, like, head to head. Like, all she has to do is summon a big old briar patch and she can take them out just like that. I guess they just needed to have their battle scene.
She could have done so many other things, but they had to... I'm pretty sure this was to cash in on either, like, Narnia or some of the other big action films that were happening at the time, because there's no reason for this battle to be right there.
But Disney made Narnia, so wouldn't that be cashing them in on themselves?
Well, no, they'd be cashing in
They
cashing in on Lord of the Rings, because remember, Narnia kind of ripped off
Yes.
Lord of the Rings.
Well, yeah.
And if anything, this does remind me a lot of Lord of the Rings. I mean, you have a big old battle scene with all these mystical creatures, and you have a ring that burns, and
But now that I'm thinking about it, why couldn't they save this? Like, I remember watching the trailer, and like it looked like that was like the climax, like near the end. But no, this is the beginning of the film. Like, what?
In this style battle, it only happens twice, and not at the climax of the film. We see her throughout the beginning and a little bit of the middle fending off against these armies, and it doesn't happen at the end in the same capacity. There's a climax, and we'll talk about it, but this type of battle on the field is supposed to be a climax, but it happens in the beginning and a little bit in the middle, and it's really, really weird.
Yeah, it's like, this is not Maleficent. She can, with a wave of her wand, annihilate, a whole army. It just doesn't make sense to me. And that's the first of many things that don't make sense.
It's like, remember how I was saying if you took away the title Maleficent, I'd say maybe this would be okay. I think the big thing that started to take me out of it was these battles and the way they were handling it. So even as a normal film, it started to fail. We flash forward again to where the king is after the battle. And he's like, oh, I need to find a successor. Whoever can kill Maleficent will be my successor. It's weird. It doesn't make sense, because I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. But Stefan hears this, and he goes and meets with Maleficent again, who, remember, previously, he's the one who warned her. Like, he's the one who helped her out. So, there is no reason, none whatsoever, for him to suddenly heel turn and betray her. Even with that, oh, you want to be king line there. Like, there's no reason. None whatsoever. And then, heel turn. Like, legit. He pulls the biggest wrestling heel turn I have ever seen. Like, think of any other wrestler. Like, if John Cena, if you can see him, like, if you can see John Cena, and if he ever did a heel turn, which would never happen, but this is exactly what it is. It's John Cena doing a heel turn.
And his name is John Cena!
And it doesn't make sense.
Sorry, just the thought of a John Cena heel turn is just hilarious in and of itself, but...
I'm just suddenly John Cena just, like, jumping into that battle and, like, fucking, like, suplexing all those knights and stuff and doing what Maleficent was doing.
Alright, I'm including
Lord.
that joke into this episode somehow.
I'm sorry, go on.
I'm gonna Photoshop this somehow, but, like,
Go on.
His name is John Cena. Do 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 do. Yeah, like, Stefan comes in. He kisses Maleficent. He gives her a potion that basically drugs her. He spikes her drink, and he takes her wings. He's going to kill her, which would be even more of a John Cena heel turn. But he doesn't kill her. He instead takes her wings and tells the king that she's dead. And the thing to address with this scene is that it is a very big rape allegory.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first saw that, I'm like, what the fuck? Like... Like, he fucking roofies her, and then he's gonna kill her, but he's like, no, I can't bring myself to do it. Ooh, I'll do the next best thing. I'll mutilate the fuck out of her.
And the way she is afterward, I mean, it's poorly acted screaming-wise, and just the reaction afterwards is very, very weird, but it's supposed to be a very clear rape allegory.
Yeah.
And,
for kids.
For Disney... I think this is very poorly handled. I mean, I don't want to dive too much into it because of the nature of the subject, but it's so weird to see.
And the thing that really, like, pisses me off is that because of this scene, they essentially made Maleficent into a woman scorned. And that's like one of the worst things you could be as a female lead, because it means you're basically driven by, you're driven by revenge against this one guy. And yeah.
Exactly.
Like, it was the same problem I
And
had in Oz the Great and Powerful, where it's like, spoiler alert, when Mila Kunis's character hooks up with the wizard, and then finds out later that he didn't intend to be serious with her, she gets all upset, drinks a potion so she'd stop feeling the heartbreak, and it turns her evil. Like, that to me is like one of the worst things I've ever seen from a female character to do, and Maleficent it's not as bad, but it still is in that area, and it just pisses me off so much. So much.
and I think it really destroys the character. Like, again, we're going to delve a little bit more into the character, but I think what this does, it takes someone who is supposed to be the mistress of all evil, someone who may be a little bit petty for being snubbed at a party in the original, but someone who she refers to her as the mistress of all evil. She summons the power of hell. She curses a child for infinite suffering for 16 years.
Yeah, like, why can't she just be evil? Why? Why can't she simply be an evil mystical creature, an evil sorceress who does evil for the sake of being evil because she enjoys it so damn much? Why can't it just be that? Why does she have to have a sympathetic backstory? Ah!
And it really tears me apart because the handling. Like, fine, if she was once a fairy, okay, find a reason for her to be evil, but they give us these surprise heel turns, and there's no reason for them. They make these characters wholly unlikable so that Maleficent can be put in the right, but that doesn't give her any character development. That doesn't make me want to sympathize with her, because I don't believe that this is realistic in the context of this movie. And when we later like go and see Maleficent, she's like, she goes back to her realm in the moors, and like all the the fairies and other demons try to talk to her, and the first thing they're like, oh my god, her wings, she doesn't have her wings. And then she covers up her horns, and like she does this, and she just starts dressing like she's at Hot Topic. Like, she just automatically becomes evil. There's no progression. Again, it's like a time skip like the rest of the film. Like, from kids to adults, it's from good to evil at the drop of a hat. And that is the biggest problem I have with the initial part of the story. And at this point, I was ready to drop the film. We had to stop the film 3 times during our watch, because I had to A, get more rum, and B, because I had to discuss this with Kat about why these scenes were bad. And this was the first major moment that I had to stop and just be like, this does not work for their character, it does not work for the story, and overall it is offensive to the original film. But anyway, Eric, do you want to comment on this? I know I've been talking a lot.
It's funny. Like, I think of that whole opening thing, and it actually has gotten me to rethink of like better ways they could have done this. I just, going back to what Kat was saying, like, why couldn't she just be evil? And I was thinking that too. I'm like, there's a way where you could like have her still have her be evil, like still be a main character, but still be evil. Like, kind of have her, like, I thought one possibility of maybe she kind of like starts delving into dark magic, like, because she likes using her magic. Like, we see that when she was a kid, using her magic. So I thought, like, what if she started like delving into dark magic, and what if she liked it, and what if she liked it a little too much, and that way, it kind of plays it off more like Lord Voldemort, but then again, that's still better than anything that they've gotten so far. as far as the taking of the wings go, I feel it has a very Beowulf feel to it. I mean, I understand the allegory, but like I guess they were trying to go for like Beowulf, which is ironic because Angelina Jolie was Grendel in the Beowulf movie that came out a few years prior, which could explain why she got this role. But yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, it kind of plays into that in a little bit. But I love how I just find it weird how like when she starts going evil and she starts like getting her staff and building this throne or whatever, like all the magical creatures surround her, like they just look at each other and then they just look at her and they just they bow to her. That's like, well, I guess we're evil now. It's like, and that's the thing. Like the creature, like she changes her appearance, but like none of the magical creatures change the appearance. Like the scenery changes a little bit more darker, I guess, but it like everything else kind of remains the same. Like all like it's not like all the magical creatures start becoming like evil. Like I was waiting to see like the minions and like like have her army of minions like going out and like we start to see different variations of it, but apparently we don't. They all stay the same. Apparently.
Especially because a lot of them had evil designs to begin with, which is kind of weird.
But it would have been so cool, though.
I wouldn't call it evil. I would just call it ugly. Like, the CGI and design of the characters in this are just so ugly. Like, this is some of the...
Especially for the fairies.
Oh, boy. We're getting to that subject.
Oh,
I just want to briefly discuss the CGI on the fairies in the beginning, because when you first see them in the film, their proportions are so horrible. They have extremely big heads and small bodies, and it kind of reminds me of like Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah,
they don't have a good ratio for fairies, and I'm like, why can't you just shrink the heads? Like, just give them like actual fairy like features. And when we see them like as humans, they look fine, but the CGI in this film is very weird.
Yeah, like, they're like, they have like cartoon character proportions, like, South Park character proportions. It's just, oh god, I mean, there are times where, like, the CGI is passable, like, on the more mystical, like, creatures, like the Ents and stuff, because at least then, it doesn't really matter, because, they're completely fictional and stuff, but then when you have, like, where they're trying to combine the humans with, the magical bodies and appendages, and it is so weird, and it is so jarring, and you can't look at it. It's just, it's so cringeworthy. It's just, yuck.
It's a shame because a lot of the scenery does look good. Somewhat samey and generic, but it does look good. But it's clear that a lot of the flying scenes with Maleficent were trying to cash in on How to Train Your Dragon.
Pretty much.
And other than that, like, they look pretty, but they're generic. And when they're CGI, they're pretty ugly. So it's a bombardment of many different things. And this is all just up until this point in the film. Like, there's a lot of these problems and elements just start to add up to this big scene, and this big scene is the first really big problem with the film. Now, we immediately cut many years down the line. Like, legit. It's so many time jumps, and this isn't the last time jump either. This is, like, there's still at least one or two more time gaps. So we jump years into the future, where King Stefan, Stefan is now king, and he's ruling this country, and he's just like, okay, well, I did my job, like, I got myself to be king, I should be happy, right? And Maleficent comes in, and we have the one scene that actually resembles Sleeping Beauty, and the one scene where I believe Angelina Jolie as Maleficent.
The one scene they actually got right.
Yes. This is the only thing I will give this film. Kat, I know you're a huge fan of this performance in this scene, so why don't you start?
Yes. So, well, first off, let's just say that I find it amusing how after Maleficent becomes evil and, she takes her throne, you think, oh man, shit's gonna go down. It's like years later, oh, by the way, the king's gonna have the king now has a new baby girl. I'm like, okay, I guess she sat on her ass all that time waiting for something like that to happen. And so we get to the infamous scene from Sleeping Beauty where it's the baby's christening, the whole kingdom comes out, and the fairies come by to bring their gifts, and then Maleficent, the ultimate party crasher, drops on in and is like, "Yo, why didn't I get an invitation?" They insult her, and she's like, "Okay. Well, I want to leave my gift. I want to leave my gift and curse." And yes, and I should mention, I know I'm making fun of this scene a little bit, but I should mention this scene hands down is the only perfect thing about this movie. And that is because all the dialogue in it is lifted word for word from the original movie. So
Except for a little bit with the curse.
yeah,
but
there's
we'll
a,
talk
there's a
about
little
that in a second.
variations, but it's essentially the same scene. And this is the moment where Maleficent comes in to introduce herself as the new Mistress of Evil, and my god, she knocks it out of the park. Like, she has the presence, she has the look, she reads her lines with such glee and such sophistication and class, and just her ultimate, you could feel her power and her presence, and it is magnificent, because, like, up to this point, I'm like, wow, Angelina Jolie is not a good actor. Like, this stuff I'm seeing from her, it's awful. And then we get to the scene, I'm like, holy shit, it's the Mistress of All Evil. I've been waiting for this.
Why couldn't you have done this the entire movie? Like, I feel like this was why she was cast. Like, she must have auditioned to, like, in this voice, in this presence, in this tone.
Well, no, she was the only person that anybody considered for this role. Like, they would not have made this movie if she were not involved. That is how damn good she is as the role as Maleficent. And I mean the true Maleficent. Like, the scene was, like, so superb. Like, you could almost feel the power from the original voice actress through her. It is, like, that damn good.
And yet they only used it for this one scene. This one scene. Now, talking a little bit briefly on the changes of this scene, like, for the most part, it is amazing. The only thing they changed was, instead of the fairies being the one to put the sleeping curse, she alters her curse as she says it, and says, "Fine, I'll give you guys an out. If true love's kiss can break the spell, then, it'll be broken." Like, she gives them an option. But at the same time, since she's been snubbed by Stefan, she knows that there's no such thing as true love. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's the only thing I don't like about this scene. I'm just like, why can't you just curse her to die? I mean, that's what they did in the original, is why can't you just curse her to die? Why does it have to be a death-like sleep? And why do you have to make a consent to be like, oh, well, I suppose the spell could be undone. Oh, wait, no, I can't.
because they had to make the fairies even more dumb, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Another thing I forgot to mention before this is the were-raven. In a scene a little bit earlier, like just before the time skip, she saves a raven, and she turns it human, and immediately it knows how to talk. And she says, "All right, you're gonna be my eyes and ears and my wings because I need your help." And he goes along with it. Like, the whole scene in the were-raven's character is completely pointless, and we'll get to that later. But yeah, she saves a raven, she turns it human for a scene, she talks to it, says, "You're my minion now," turns it back into a raven, and then we move on to this scene. So it's like, why?
I don't get why he had to turn human.
It's magic, bitch. I don't have to explain it.
Because, I mean, they have all these mystical creatures. Why can't they just have the Raven talk? I don't understand that.
Hey,
And another thing,
yeah.
this is a small thing, but it still really annoyed me, was the name change for the Raven. Because they, in Sleeping Beauty, even though his name isn't mentioned, officially his name is Diablo. You know, because Disney is subtle like that. But in this one, they changed it to Diaval, which
Which is
I
weird.
guess is among the same, meaning and such, but it's like, why did you make that change? Like, really, why?
Here's another random change was they changed the names of the three fairies, going back to the actual good scene. Instead of Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather, the three fairies are completely different names, even though they're supposed to represent the same people.
Yeah, we have Knotgrass, Thistlewit, and Flittle.
Which are horrible names. The original are so much better because they represent stuff. Flora, as in, plant life, fauna, animal life, and Merryweather just being
Weather.
the grumpy one. Yeah, the weather. The grumpy one. But, here's the thing. I really don't like what they did with the fairies. Speaking specifically of that scene where Maleficent is so perfect, the three fairies are idiots. They're complete and total morons. And when we get to the character section, we'll talk more. But like they don't act like the original fairies. And the original fairies had their moments where they were stupid. But this characterization is just so odd. And their voices, they pitch the voices, and it's so odd. And it's like, ugh. So story. Okay. So we have this curse. The king, who just met these fairies, these three fairies, the king, even though he knows they're idiots, he orders them to go and take Aurora out to the cottage and take her away from the castle. And immediately after, he commits a plot hole. Because remember how we talked in the original about, like, how if you're sending the daughter away from the kingdom, why get rid of all the spindles in the kingdom, right? Well, he sends his daughter away, and immediately afterwards, he orders all the spindles burned and locked away underneath the castle. So, like, in the original, there's nothing left of these spindles, but in this, they're just sitting there, like, they're not fully burned. They're just in some cell in a castle, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's like you took one of the big plot holes from the original and you made it worse. That, like, why? Why? It's like, because like in the original, when a spindle does appear, it's purely through magic, so it makes sense. But in this one, it's like, okay, I'm gonna partially destroy the thing that's gonna destroy my daughter, and just keep it in a spot where maybe, hopefully, she won't get to it, but if somebody really wanted to, they could. Like, what?
And here's the thing. They said prick your finger on a spindle. It doesn't have to be on a specific part of the spindle. It could be a splinter.
Death by Splinter.
And now I'm picturing Splinter from TMNT, just like defeating Aurora.
Well, that is a way more honorable death.
You're gonna die. Here is the part of the film where I had already kind of checked out, but then now I was like actively like, I was like, I don't have enough rum for this. So the fairies turn into human, and they leave the baby outside unattended for like a few minutes. And Maleficent stops by and talks to it, and then they bring it inside, and Maleficent like just automatically goes up to the cabin, looks at the baby, and she doesn't kill it or do anything. Like, there's no point to the scene, but she looks at it and she goes, Rah. Are you fucking kidding me? This is Maleficent. Even if she's not green, she is the mistress of all evil. The mistress of all evil has her enemy right in front of her, and she doesn't kill it. She doesn't just observe to see if her curse is panning out. She goes up to the baby, and she says, "Rah." Let me tell you something. When I worked at Scary Acres, one of the things they told us not to do when acting scary was to say boo or rah, because it's not scary. No one's going to be frightened by that. You're supposed to do things to intimidate people, things they wouldn't expect. This is not intimidating, it's not scary, it's not funny, it is completely turning one of the best characters in Disney villain mythos into a gibbering moron. And at that point, I checked out of this film. Like, my bags left the station, I chucked them onto the railroad tracks, and I was out the door.
Yep, just rage quit. Done. Well done. Get the steak off the grill. We're done. Yeah, I agree with you. When I first saw them in theaters, I'm like, okay, well, this plan failed immediately. She knows where they are. She can easily access the baby and kill her, and she doesn't. In fact, she spends the entire film basically looking after the baby and taking care of her in secret because the other fairies are too fucking stupid to do so. And I'm like,
The other
why?
the three fairies barely show up in this film. We see her so many times with Maleficent, and I'm just like, where the hell do the fairies go? Like, do they know where Aurora is? Why are they not taking care of her? Oh, because they're bumbling idiots, and every time we see them on screen, they're being idiots. It's really, really weird. If you're going to have Maleficent be a sympathetic character and still have this curse, show some sort of attachment or reason why she's growing attached to the child. Now, it has been pointed out to me that in the curse, she kind of set herself up. Mm-hmm. Saying Aurora will charm every person she meets.
Yes,
something like
the
that.
exact words were the princess will grow in grace and beauty, beloved by all she meets. So right then and there,
beloved by all she meets.
Yeah, so right then and there, Maleficent kind of screwed herself. But it's like they don't really give any indication to that. Like the only reason I picked up on it is because they kind of pull something like that later on in the film with her words working against her. And it's only then that I'm like, okay. That makes a little more sense. But even so, we don't really yeah, there's no transition, or there's no inkling or sort of flicker of change that would make you indicate that she cares at all about the survival of this baby, other than, oh, I can't wait for it to grow up and then have my evil plan carry out. But even then, it's not like she takes any real glee from watching them.
There's no internal monologue. There's no inkling of why she's doing this. And if you didn't pay attention to the curse or the way it moves by, you could have forgotten that specific wording and still be completely confused. They should have either addressed it or just had some event that made her grow attached to the child. But what's even more frustrating to me is there are scenes of her protecting the child, like Aurora almost runs off a cliff, which, who does this? Who does this? What sort of non-survival instinct do you have to almost run off a cliff?
The kid from Superman 2? Or was it 3?
Okay.
I lose track.
But she almost runs off a cliff and Maleficent saves her, and I'm like, why? Do you want to be the one to kill her? Like, do you really have to do this? Like, you could have just let her die, and go see the king and be like, oh yeah, your daughter's dead.
Nobody
Like,
has
there's
to know.
no reason. It's like, this is the sort of thing they parody in Justice League Unlimited, when the Flash pretended to be Lex Luthor, and he's like, did you wash your hands? No, because I'm evil. Because this is like what people think evil people do. Like, oh, we're not killing, we're just plotting evil things. And I'm like, you are reducing this character. So we have montage of her caring for this child, meeting up with this child, and like, talking to her, and all this other stuff. And the chemistry does work between them because it's Angelina Jolie's daughter.
Yeah, it's I was mistaken. I thought it was Shiloh originally. It's actually Vivian, like one of the twins. But yeah, it is adorable to see like her interacting with her daughter dressed as Maleficent. And the fact that her daughter like gives no fucks. Like she's even like trying to take apart her costume while her mom's holding her. It's a cute scene.
And it's great. It's believable. It's, I can understand this. But we have this montage, and time passes again, and this is not the last time I'm going to say this. So she's close to her 16th birthday, and basically it's going to be the day where they're going to... the fairies have this argument about when they're going to bring the daughter back to the kingdom, and one of them says stupidly that they should bring her back on her birthday, and I'm like, the curse is set to her birthday. Like, what do you not get about that?
Yeah, one of them even says like, no, we're gonna bring her after her birthday, and I'm like, huh, that actually makes sense. That is smart. But the other one's like, no, we're supposed to do it on her birthday. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you just fixed one of the big plot problems in the original, and then immediately backtrack on it for the sake of comedy. Like,
and it's not funny.
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah,
and then I love the transition is that, Maleficent's been basically watching Aurora her entire life, and then only when she comes, like, close to her 16th birthday that she's like, you know what, I'm gonna kidnap her, bring her to my crib, and then, make her one of my homies. Like, there's really no lead up to that.
And... yeah, it like she meets up with her, and she brings her to the moors and shows her around. But the funniest thing, and the only other praise I will give this film, is that she asks if Maleficent is her fairy godmother.
That was funny.
And I'm like, in the context of this movie, which is somewhat infuriating, that is hilarious. So
Wrong
that's
film.
2 points. Yeah, she brings the child to the moors, and the king's men have been attacking the Moors, so she basically has to protect her the child even more, and she starts taking out guards and like this and that and the other thing, and I'm like, so why did you take her to the Moors if like they're attacking the Thorns as is? Like, she put a barrier of thorns around the Moors, a reference to the original, and she's doing that to protect the Moors from people who are trying to attack her. And then she brings Aurora to the place that's more dangerous than where she was before.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, let's take one of the cooler like things Maleficent did in the original and, not make it quite as cool. Just, a barrier that, isn't really like, doesn't lead to anything. It's just there.
Like, this entire scene is just so they can interact and talk with, like, the creatures and whatnot, but it doesn't do anything for the actual film. It just, again, it's just kind of there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's to build the relationship, because eventually they do sort of form a bond. It's just weird because it comes out of
I
nowhere.
don't know why. And then she's suddenly back at like the actual forest outside the moors, and she meets up with the prince. Oh yeah, I'm in the movie.
Oh, hi, Prince. What are you doing here?
The prince appears even less in this film than in the original, and that's saying something. The prince is only in this movie for 2 scenes. The first is when he's on his way to the castle, and he sees Aurora and asks for directions, and she doesn't know, so he walks away. That's it.
Yeah, I think he holds with the record. Like, he's probably tied with Cinderella's prince for, most screen time, most lines, and most bearing on the plot. Like, he is just there to be the prince. To fill that role in that quota.
All right. So let's start to wrap this up because this is nearing the final bit of the film. Aurora runs home because the fairies try to tell her that, the fairies basically tell her who Maleficent really is and that she's a princess and that her parents aren't dead because they told her parents were dead.
Yeah.
She's not Batman, guys.
Yeah. They kind of do exactly what they did in the original by, basically throwing this truth bomb on her at the very last minute saying, oh yeah, by the way, you're not an orphan, you're a princess, you're engaged to this guy, and we're taking you back to your home tomorrow, and yeah, you're supposed to accept all of it. Like, they don't change that.
But it's... the big thing in this film is that her parents aren't dead.
Well, one of them anyway.
And, yeah. And so... She gets so upset about this. She curses Maleficent. Like, she basically renounces Maleficent, and someone she was saying just a minute ago that she was going to live with. But she's like, oh no, I renounce you. I'm gonna, she yells at her and she storms off to the castle. Now, this is related. Going back a little bit of ways in the film, during the montage of her, like, being a guardian to Aurora, Maleficent tries to reverse her own curse. She tries to cancel it out.
Yeah.
Now, this in and of itself frustrates me because, again, she's the mistress of all evil. Why would she even try to do this? Because it's not even a curse of death. It's not even a curse that will kill one of the retcons that they make specifically is that this isn't about death, it's about sleeping. And true love's kiss will break the spell. I mean, she doesn't believe in true love, but even still, it's still not death. But she tries to reverse it. And because she said no power on earth can break this curse, it doesn't get broken. But she doesn't say this to Aurora when confronted. She should have said, I made a mistake. I tried to reverse the curse. Like, there's ways to do the scene emotionally that would make sense for the character. But Maleficent says nothing other than, yes, I did it.
The unfortunate thing is that her saying no power can undo it, on the one hand, screws over this movie, but also kind of improved something from the original. It's that, the 3 fairies said that, oh, they can't undo Maleficent's curse, and it's like, why not? You have magic, and your magic's supposed to do good. Wouldn't this be a good thing? And so... I'm thinking like, okay, well, this actually, covers for that. It's like they can undo it because she specifically said that they can't. But then, in turn, she screws over herself. And it's like, well, we gotta, maintain the status quo of her falling asleep, so we can't have her undo her own curse. And it's like, well, shit. And yeah.
Why even introduce this plot point if you're just gonna ignore it.
Yeah, like I said, they had to cover their asses somehow, otherwise this would have been a much shorter movie. Probably a more infuriating movie too, although I don't see how that's possible.
Is there anything you would like to add, Eric, before we move on to the quote-unquote climax of the film?
I find it interesting how the two of you still haven't addressed the one other plot hole that none of you talked about yet, and I want to bring this up. King Stefan entrusts Aurora to the fairies. The fairies who are from the Moors, and the only thing that and what we both all know is that the fairies only come from one part of the kingdom, which is the Moors, which is where all the magical creatures are. And King Stefan doesn't trust any of the magical creatures. So why would King Stefan entrust Aurora to the fairies, who he knows is from that very same region that he was trying to conquer a long time ago, that the old king was trying to conquer a long time ago? So what is this double standard that's going on that, oh, I don't trust Maleficent, but I trust the fairies? Like, that's the one other plot point that I realized that I'm still confused on, is why would he entrust them to the fairies to begin with if he knows that the fairies are from that same region and that's the only...
That doesn't make sense, and it also makes me wonder why the fairies are afraid of Maleficent when they see her in that scene, because we see earlier in the film that she's friends with the three fairies.
I mean, that I get, that I understand, but they're all from the same region. They're all from the same area.
Yeah,
area that King Stefan has been trying to conquer.
Not to mention that he has a history with with fairies. You know, he betrayed Maleficent. So why is he
I might have an explanation, but I can't confirm it. I did read, as part of a background, research for this, is that originally Stefan was supposed to be a half-human, half-fairy hybrid, who was like the bastard son of the king and one of the fairies, and I think one of the fairies was supposed to be, one of the three fairies, hence why they're the only ones that are invited to the baby's christening. So that may be why they're the only ones he trusts, and I guess even though they cut that out, they kind of, still kept it in, and just be like, oh, well, they tried to establish, good connections with the human world, and, I guess they went against Maleficent, but they never actually make that clear, or show any examples that, they are in fact against Maleficent. It's just, oh, they knew each other and now she's a bitch to them. And that's it. Like I said, I think there was an explanation. It's just very poorly thought out and very poorly written. Just a hypothesis.
But it doesn't come across that way. It doesn't come across as like, oh, it's the only fairies. But why all of a sudden, like, he trusts those fairies? I
guess you could say because they have magic, and they're the only ones that can defend against her magic, even though we never see them actually go against her magic. I don't know.
According to this film, they just met too. Like, there's this really no reason. I mean, this film raises too many questions.
Too many questions.
Yes, so I suppose we should deal with the most infuriating part of the film.
Oh boy.
The climax. So during this portion of the film, Aurora is back in the castle. But Stefan, instead of saying, oh my god, you're my daughter, you look just like her, like, he's just like, you came back too soon! Like, he doesn't even give his daughter a hello. He just like, why are you here? Like, he's such a douche.
Basically, at this point in the story, he's basically gone mad with power.
Well, you ever try going mad without power?
Reason.
It sucks. No one listens to you.
And here's one of the major problems with the film in general. We're going to be talking more about Stefan later, but Stefan himself, every time we see him, is a complete dick. He doesn't have any redeeming qualities past that first act. And here's a prime example where he meets his daughter after 16 years. And all he says was, "It's too soon. We have to get these fairies," and blah, 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 blah. It's really weird.
To be fair, I'd be kind of pissed
so
off too if, I went through all this trouble to keep my child safe, and then at the very last second, like, somebody fucks up all my plans, and she's, like, on the brink of about to be put to sleep forever. I mean, I could sort of understand that, but yeah, you are right. He is a dick about that whole situation. At least, hey, hello, it's so wonderful to finally meet you, something like that. But then again, by this point, he's pretty much batshit insane. So what do you expect?
He's gone pretty insane. We actually see that the wings that he cut off Maleficent are still alive because magic. And he's been talking to the wings. He has been literally talking to these wings that he has in a glass case in his room as if it were Maleficent. Off screen, he goes insane.
Yeah, like I love the scene where his wife is on her deathbed and asks for him, and he just turns to the servant and is like, "Can't you see we're having a conversation?" I'm like, wow, just wow.
Yeah, it's just This is a weird part of the film. So we have the fairies return to the castle to watch over Aurora. Basically, they are too late, though, because the curse has taken effect, and Aurora has pricked her finger on one of the spindles that reforms in the dungeon full of spindles. Like you do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that happened in the original movie, too, but in the original movie, it wasn't in a room full of other spindles.
Yeah, like, they got rid of them, at
like
least, instead of leaving them half-burned. So the fairies are trying to find someone to kiss Aurora while she sleeps. Maleficent, meanwhile, has her were-raven and storms the castle. Well, not storms, rather, she infiltrates the castle through the spindle room somehow. I don't know how she sneaks in.
Get this. Stefan, in his paranoia that Maleficent would come at any moment to kill him, made it so that the entire foyer of the castle entrance is covered with iron spikes.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right. It's made to look like the bramble patch from the original film.
I'm like, how the hell do people get in and out of this? Like, granted, they wouldn't get burned like Maleficent would, but that's gotta be so fucking inconvenient. What if you had, like, a wagon or some bulky item or something? You're fucking screwed. How do you get anything into the castle?
There's a back door.
Yeah, that's probably covered with spikes,
so why
too.
not go in the back door? So it's just, they go through there, and meanwhile, we cut back to the fairies. The prince shows up. I'm in the movie. They ask the prince to kiss Aurora, and he does, and it doesn't work because they only met once, and that makes sense. And that is, like, the one other point that...
The one logical thing that happens in this movie.
Yes, because they aren't in true love. But Maleficent makes it... Maleficent makes her way into the room, and she's completely upset because she sees that the true love's kiss didn't work, and she talks to her, and she kisses her, and it breaks the spell. Which, unfortunately, if Frozen hadn't happened, I would not have seen this coming. But unfortunately, I think Frozen has changed our expectations of Disney movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did see this coming. Admittedly, I think this is a good twist.
Yeah.
And a good change to the original formula. But not in this film.
Yeah, I think the biggest, like, thing that hurt Maleficent was that it came out so soon after Frozen. So, and that's basically what this movie is, like, Frozen starring Maleficent. That's pretty much the plot when you think about it.
Yeah, it has a lot of Frozen elements, and I feel like they might have done that because Frozen was so insanely popular. But it just, so many things just don't come together like they should. But with Aurora awake, she reunites with Maleficent. She instantly likes her again. They don't address that, by the way. They don't address that she's supposed to be angry at Maleficent still. But they go back down to the foyer, and they have the climactic battle, which is essentially very, very stupid. Maleficent can't really do anything because iron hurts her, and they surround her with iron. So she turns her were-raven into a dragon. She turns her were-raven, and not her, into a dragon. Like, this is...
Adamantium rage.
It's... You have this reference to the original film. The original film where one of the biggest moments was Maleficent calling on all the powers of hell and turning into a goddamn dragon. And she doesn't become one herself, even though she has dragon wings? If she can turn someone else into a dragon, why can't she make her wings grow back? Or why can't she turn into a dragon herself and just slaughter everyone? It just raises too many questions. So...
Yeah, at this point in the film, I was the one who's like, I'm done. I'm out. Game over. Go away. I'm gonna retreat into my pit of hate. I'll be in the Angry Dome! God, I hate this scene so damn much. Ugh.
It's so bad on so many bullshit levels.
Yeah,
but it gets worse.
Okay. Before we continue... Eric, you mind telling everyone how great my rage was at this film when we got to that scene? How so utterly powerful it was that it broke it?
Yes. When me and Kat were watching Maleficent together, when we got to the climax, we got to the part shortly after Maleficent turns Diaval into a dragon, at around that point, shortly, about a minute or so afterwards, the DVD stopped working, like, because there was a scratch on it, and it, like, skipped, it, like, got damaged so much that it skipped all the way to the ending. Like, it just skipped, like, that whole rest of that scene and went right to the end. So...
Best thing
we were just
ever.
like, no! So it was like, no, this DVD is cursed, and we got to do something. So I remembered that my sister had a copy of it. So I called my sister, and she's like, what's going on? Like, what's going on? I said, I have an emergency. Like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like, oh, I need your copy of Maleficent. She's like, wait, really? She thought maybe I lost an arm or something.
Oh, you almost gave her a heart attack. It was like, he's like, emergency! I need your DVD right now! I need to watch the shittiness pan out!
But I remember she left it at my place because my fiance wanted to watch it. And that was like 2 years ago, keep in mind. And it's been sitting in my apartment for the last 2 years, which I completely forgot about. So I grabbed the copy, went back to my place, grabbed the copy, went back over to Kat's, and we finally finished watching the rest of the film. So
yeah, so that was the ending of our harrowing journey to finish this awful film.
It's almost done. It's almost done.
I just love how at that point where I'm at my angriest, that's when the film breaks. Like, it was like, wow, it felt my anger. I will ruin this film with my anger. Oh, that was funny though. I think that was the most fun viewing experience we've had with a movie so far. So that's our story, but please finish this up for us, Zen. Please finish this horribleness up.
Here's the thing. We have this big climactic battle. You know, it's stupid. It's pointless. She turns the raven into a dragon. Yes, it's all very horrible. Here's the next bit of stupid. They catch the dragon in a net.
Yep, a big old fire-breathing dragon, and they manage to immobilize it with a net.
It's not
a dragon net.
It's not a fairy. Like, I get it, like, nets work on fairies, but a dragon?
Yeah. Like, not only did they make the wrong person the dragon, but they bitchified the dragon, too. Like...
So, like, it none of that even remotely just works. This entire climax just feels horrible. Then they have this big old battle where, Maleficent and Stefan fight. She takes him to the top of the tower, and they have this kind of battle because she gets her wings back. Her wings are still alive, like I said, and they reattach, and she starts being able to fight again.
And for some reason, her clothes burns off, and suddenly she's wearing this sexy leather outfit, and I'm like, when did we put on the Lara Croft movie?
It's insanely weird because when she lost her wings, it was as if she were crippled. But getting her wings back doesn't hurt her, it just re-energizes her. It's like if somebody recharged a battery or something and said, oh yeah, we put you on the evil function, here's the not evil function. It's all good.
Yeah, it's like if Luke suddenly got his hand back and then, was kicking ass with a double-sided saber.
It's so weird. And the way she defeats him is also very weird. So she fights, she takes Stefan up to the top tower. They have this big fight, and he tries to push her off the tower. Stefan, she has wings now. You saw that she has wings now, but he pushes her off the tower. They tumble around in midair, and she lets go and starts flying. You are so dumb, Stefan. You are so furiously dumb.
Yeah, and then he goes the way of Hans Gruber.
Yep, death by falling. And
Death by falling in slow motion.
And that's kind of how the film concludes. There's a little bit at the end about how, like, she takes down the Thorns and the Moors, and the regular people can live in peace now, and, like, she actually has the three fairies, like, with her, and
Aurora's now
for
queen,
some reason.
And everything's all hunky-dory, and I guess they got married. I don't know, I was getting weird vibes from that scene, but...
Like, altogether, the ending feels rushed, and the film ends. The film ends. We've talked about the story for a long time. Let's do final thoughts. I will go last. You guys, Eric, why don't you go first, since I know we have bitched a lot.
Yeah.
Like I said, like, I wasn't as enraged. I was more confused than anything else. I'm like, really? This is what you're going with? Because it just... Not... I mean, it's like what you were saying earlier. Like, if this wasn't Maleficent, if this was titled something else, and it didn't have, like, Maleficent and the characters from Sleeping Beauty in it, it would have just been an average film. It just would have been okay. Granted, a couple tweaks here and there, but I was just like, wait, what? Really? This is, and heck, it even got me thinking about like all the different things it could have done. Like, I feel like I need to do like a video explaining how like Maleficent could have been done a whole lot better or something like that. Like, because I could explain, like, this, they could have taken it in a much different direction. Now, granted, they're taking it from a source material that's just kind of bland. Then again, they learned from their mistakes when they eventually did do Cinderella, and with Cinderella, at least they got that right. But here it's just, It's just a lot of bad direction. Like I know with Angelina Jolie in that one scene in the bit where she finally places the curse on Aurora. I mean, I look at the rest of her performance, and I don't think I think it's more of a case. I can argue it's more of a case of bad directing than bad acting, because I mean, yeah, granted here and there, but I think the direction overall was not where it needed to be. Because I mean, her acting, like Angelina Jolie, there are moments where she is Maleficent, but but it would have been a lot better if she had better material to work with, and it had and overall really a better script. But I mean, I do understand both of your rages. The fact that they took one of the more sinister Disney villains and just made it into and use it as an excuse to use the I'm not evil, I'm just misunderstood trope for like the bajillionth time that we've seen in movies for the last 5-10 years or so, and that just kind of feels like a bit of a cop out. I mean, overall, I mean the movie is just, which is kind of what the critics said, really.
Mm-hmm.
And Kat, what do you think of the story?
Like, they needed an editor badly. And if they had an editor, they should fire that editor and get 10 new editors, or somebody who would be able to make it into a workable script. Because, God, the direction they went with this is just so fucking awful. Like, if you wanted to do it from Maleficent's point of view, your goal should be to make her as badass as possible. Show her transition to evil in the most, badass way possible, and just, have fun with it. Like, if you had to, like, make it where she was, like, somewhat sympathetic to Aurora, or, she took a likeness to her, make it that she tries to turn her evil, like, she tries to make her apprentice or something. Like, I don't know, just anything would have been better than this. The story just is so goddamn infuriating, and it is so, like, they try to be unique, and it ends up being predictable, and and there's so many plot holes, and it just makes the stuff from the original so much worse. It's just god fucking awful. So awful. Ugh.
I agree. I think the story in general needed like 15 rewrites. It really does not work as initially intended. The idea kind of has merit, but there's only 3 points I could give in the favor of this film, and one of those points was done by Frozen. So even then, like, one of those things that I praised about the film was taken from another earlier film. So it just, on so many levels, it doesn't work as a story. I hated that. Let's talk about the characters. I suppose we should start with the title character, Maleficent. We've gone on a lot about how pretty much Maleficent was changed as a character. Angelina Jolie, aside from that one scene, was not the person that this movie needed for Maleficent. Like, she acts like a very weird character. She doesn't have the menace. She doesn't have anything that the original Maleficent had. And that's the thing. Like, it's not just the actor, it's the character, where this is not Maleficent. This is like somebody pretending to be Maleficent. Maleficent is supposed to be the mistress of all evil. If you're going to tell us why she's sympathetic, then give us a reason other than she's a fairy who was betrayed. It just really seems like they went out of their way to turn a good character into something that it's not. This is not Maleficent as a character, as anything. Like, this is not any representation of Maleficent.
This is Maleficent Coke Zero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just like the potential is there. They picked the absolute perfect actress. They have the look for the most part. They have the presence. They just didn't do anything with it. I mean, they tried to, but they did it in the worst way possible. Just, I don't know why they just couldn't have fun with her character. And like, there were times where they had her like messing with the fairies and doing some evil things, like, you know, sort of like bitch slapping Stefan's army away when they try to infiltrate the Briar and everything. But it's like, go further. Go much further. Have her like, like in the original where she fucking straight up blast her minions for being fucking idiots. And where she's just unleashing magic here and there. And that's another thing. She should have done more magic. Like, have her do more than just, sneak around and skulk and, occasionally do magic. That's supposed to be her primary thing. And she shouldn't have had wings. I don't know why she had wings. Like, she could fucking teleport. Why couldn't they just have her teleport? But then again, that would have made the one scene impossible, but whatever. The point is, like, they had the tools, they had the sources, they just didn't have the know-how to pull it off. And that's what's most disappointing.
I agree. I mean, there's just a lot about this version of Maleficent that just does not work. What do you think, Eric?
I mean, it's like I said before, like, it's more of a case of bad directing than bad acting, per se, because that's also what Kat said. She has the look, she has the mannerisms. They just didn't give her much to work with. It's just, and yeah, why didn't she use more magic? I mean, instead of just using it for playing like little pranks on stuff, it's like, whatever. It's like, you could have done that here and there, but like, use it. She could have just used the magic to like, really like wreak havoc on everything. But then I'm getting into the whole, what if scenario, if I were to have rewritten the whole thing. But I mean, as a character, it's like it boils down to, it's like, oh, I'm not evil, I'm just misunderstood, and I'm all scorned. But it's like, I've seen this before in like so many other different movies. It's like, this is the best they could have come up with. It's just it just feels like a mesh of just recycled tropes over and over again.
I will give it this, though, because of how bad this movie did. We have not seen another live variation of them trying to make a bad guy sympathetic. Like, it didn't happen in Cinderella, and it didn't happen in Jungle Book, and I assume it's not going to happen in Beauty and the Beast. So I guess we can at least be thankful for that. Although I did hear at one point they were supposed to do a Cruella film, but here's hoping that got shelved after the failure of Maleficent, because we don't need a sympathetic Cruella. We don't. I
think the one in particular is still on. I think Cruella is still on, but I don't think now, after seeing what they did with Maleficent, they probably going to steer it into an entirely different direction. I mean, there's no release date for it yet. Like, there's no set thing for it yet, but I can imagine when they eventually do get around to it, I don't think they're going to do the same thing what they did with Maleficent. I think they've learned their lessons since then.
I'm hoping so.
Because you could... Yeah, because you could tell from the live action Disney remakes since Maleficent, they have gotten better with each one.
Yeah.
So they've gotten better with it over time as far as what not to do.
Exactly. Like, I haven't seen Cinderella, but I really liked The Jungle Book. So, I mean, we can only hope that The Beauty and the Beast is good too. But yeah, I don't know.
We don't need a sympathetic Gaston. He's glorious enough just being the asshole he is.
I think a lot of the side characters in this film, we can agree, are really just kind of there or wasted. The prince is barely in this, like, even more so than the original.
I'm in the movie.
Aurora has a few scenes, but even she's kind of absent a lot.
Yeah, and she still doesn't have much personality. She's still the typical nice princess.
The character of the Were-Raven is just there for eye candy. I cannot understand why he's in the film, because they devote an entire scene to her saving this crow, and then she turns it human just to have it talk, and then he's only in maybe 3 scenes. Like, he's always just by her side throughout the rest of the movie, but him talking to her is only a small portion of the film. Like, you could have cut this character from the movie and not missed much.
Actually, I was thinking this the first time I saw it, and I do wonder what would have happened if they went this direction. What if they made it so that she fell in love with Diaval, and he's the one that...
I was actually thinking that.
Yeah, because they kind of set it up a bit, you know, because, like, he plays with her when she's younger, and then, like, he treats her so, you know, cordial-like when they officially meet, and I'm like, huh, is he gonna be the prince? Is that why he was made human? But no, they don't go anywhere with it, and I'm really wondering what would have happened if they went in that direction. Like, that...
I don't
That
know
actually would have
how
made
I'd
it more
feel
interesting.
about that. It would make it more interesting, but I'm just like...
Would have been a big fucking
I
twist,
don't-
you gotta admit.
But now, because they didn't do that, it makes his character kind of pointless, aside from the reference to the original.
It actually would be a reference to the original when you think about it, because remember the scene at the beginning of Once Upon a Dream where she's dancing with the owl who's dressed as the prince?
Yeah, that does make sense.
I don't know. I think it's cute, and it's like it's definitely fan fiction fodder. I don't say that much.
Okay. I do want to briefly mention one thing, and that's, why does Maleficent have a British accent?
Because all good bad guys have British accents, apparently.
And on that note, let's talk about Stefan, who...
Oh lord.
Like the Crow, who has kind of an indeterminate accent that's kind of Irish or Scottish, like Maleficent, who has a British accent for no reason, he has an unintelligible, almost Scottish accent that makes everything he says completely laughable, because it sounds like he's talking with haggis in his mouth. Like, literally, like, you can barely understand some of what he's saying, and he's just not a good character, because he starts off liking Maleficent, and he starts off being a character that we like, and then he just betrays her for no reason. John Cena heel turns, and then he gets crazier and crazier and crazier. Like, when they meet again, he doesn't apologize, he doesn't feel sorry, he just off screen descends into madness. And this would be fascinating if we saw the development of this, but much like the time skips in the rest of the film, they just skip right over it. It's completely just time gap.
It also doesn't help that the guy is just a terrible actor. Like, I did not believe his performance. Like, if he's supposed to be evil from the beginning, they don't show it. And he's so soft-spoken on top of having that really thick accent. And it's like the scenes where he's supposed to be angry or intense or demanding, it's like he goes from 0 to 10 like that. It's just like,
I create life.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, granted, it's a very slow build-up, because it's like, okay, he's gonna explode, he's gonna explode, he's gonna explode, okay, there it is. It's just, I don't know what it is, his line reads, or his portrayal, or whatever, just, everything about him was just wrong, and it was off, and it just added to the unpleasantness of the character.
It's a character that I really did not care for, and it just didn't make much sense. There's this one scene where he finds out that people are... he wakes up in the middle of the night, and he finds that his guards are exhausted, and they exhausted from storming the moors. And he says to his servant, wake them up. And he's like, well, it's 3 a.m., sir. Everyone's exhausted. We need sleep. And he turns to his guard, and he's just like, Well, then wake them up! And he shakes this person, and he goes completely batshit, like, from nothing. And I'm like, what the hell am I watching?
Oh, I should mention, the guy also played Howlin' Mad Murdoch in the A-Team movie that was released back in 2010. And that kind of explains a lot, because he wasn't a good actor in that either.
I think that's all the characters? Oh, wait, no.
We have to address the big problem characters. The three fairies.
The fairies.
Dear God, these
And-
fairies. Dear God. Like,
Okay.
ugh.
Yeah, there's a reason I kind of forgot to mention them. They are completely forgettable. They're barely in the film, but when they're there, all they're doing is arguing over the most inane, stupid things. Now, it's not about the color of a dress like the original, which was kind of funny. Here, they're just arguing over nothing, and like they just start fighting every scene they're in. There's no scene where they're likable. There's no scene where they actually act like people. There's no scene where they behave like they did in the original, where, yes, they fought, but over believable things. And they had moments of sympathy and character development. There's nothing here. There is literally nothing besides them being rock stupid. Like, literally, the character who's supposed to be Fauna, is dumb as a sack of hammers. And aside from them fighting and being rock stupid, they do nothing but ignore the child that they're supposed to be raising.
Yeah, and the biggest crime of all, the lead fairy is played by one of the most evil characters in Harry Potter history. Like, that automatically
Dolores
should tell you how likable the
Jane
character is.
Umbridge.
Yeah, like, honestly, with these fairies, I think back to the movie Tropic Thunder, in which Robert Downey Jr. tells Ben Stiller, never go full retard. They went beyond full retard. Like, way beyond.
I don't even know how they function. Like, seriously, I do not know how they literally function. And when we first see them transform into a human, for a minute, I was like, okay, they sound fine, they look fine now, let's see how this goes. Immediately, no. Because they just are horribly written, horribly done characters. And these are good actors. The person who plays Umbridge is a good actress.
Yeah,
But
she challenges her Umbridge a little too much.
yeah, it just... These do not work. None of these characters work, and in order to make Maleficent a good character, which she still isn't, but in order to make her look good, they made everyone else into either a dick, rock stupid, or a mixture of both, and it is completely just unlikable. It is a waste of all of these characters, because I didn't care about a single one in the movie.
Yeah, it's like the writers looked at the movie and it's like, oh, so we have stunning animation, beautiful tapestry-like art. Let's replace it with shitty CGI. Oh, we have these three likable fairies that, you know, do stuff and actually move the plot of the film. No, let's make them dumb as hell and annoying to boot. Oh, we have this great mistress of all evil who can, like, destroy an army with a flick of her wrist. Oh, let's make her a sympathetic anti-hero, like, martyr type who is, like, completely in the right and, you know, was actually acting in the best interest all along. Like, dear God. Like,
This is the antithesis of the original film. And you mentioned the presentation about the CGI, and, like, that's just a slap in the face. But even deeper, the music. You know, the entire reason the first one was made
It's non-existent. No music.
It's not there. Like, they don't even have the chorus. They don't have Tchaikovsky's music. They don't have anything related to Sleeping Beauty except for the end credits, which is Once Upon a Dream, but it's done in such an odd fashion. Like, it's haunting and weird.
Like, to be
And that's not once.
like, to be fair, it was good for the trailer because, you know, it created that sort of like you said, like a haunting feel to this movie where we had no idea what the plot was and what direction it was going, and it made you like really want to know like what Maleficent's backstory was and everything. But then just as like an ending piece, like it comes after the happily ever after, and then it's like gloom, 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 and it's like, what? It's just so out of place.
Like, why not at least use it in the film? Like, they could have used the song at some point, like maybe when she was going towards the spindle. Use it then.
Yeah, that. I suppose that could have worked. I mean, chances were if they did add music, it either would have been like original rip-off junk, or it would have been bad renditions of the old stuff. Frankly, I'm glad they didn't touch the music because they probably would have fucked it up one way or another. Wow,
we said a lot.
Wow, we spent 2
Yeah.
hours raging about this. That must tell you how much we love this film.
Eric, do you have anything to add before we start to wrap this up?
I don't know if there's any much more I can add. I mean, apart from the fairies being a very poor implemented Three Stooges, I mean, that are just not funny, but I think looking back on it, if Disney wanted to try and do this again, I think they would have a much better idea on what they wanted to do, especially since given that the other live-action remakes that they've done have turned out way better than this one. So I think they're a lot smarter now as far as how to implement it. I mean, you know, and it's funny because they actually wanted to do a sequel to this. They wanted to do a Maleficent 2, but that's now completely on the back burner simply because, you know, of how the critics received this one, and also from fans. So I know that's probably never going to happen. But, I mean, it's just, I feel more disappointed. Just more disappointed and confused than anything else. Like, this could have been so much better. This could have been such a much better film.
This could have been a film that really explored the villain. It didn't need to be a remake. It didn't need to be a prequel. It could have just been a movie about Maleficent as a villain. It had potential for so much, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys. This may be my least favorite Disney sequel that we have done on the show. We've touched upon quite a few. We did Lady and the Tramp 2, we did Bambi 2, we did Savage Sam, we did Cinderella 2 and 3. And of the stuff that we've done, the only thing that compares to this is Savage Sam. And this, to me, is a hard distinction. Savage Sam is just so boring that I think it's a worse movie overall. But Maleficent, as a Disney sequel, is so offensive to every point of what we have. It is so offensive to the original that it changes every single thing. Cinderella 2 at least tried to acknowledge the original. Even Savage Sam, to an extent, acknowledged that the original existed and tried to work within the confines of that. This film flat out ignores it, and so I'm kind of torn. I think Savage Sam is a worse made movie because of how boring it is, but this infuriates me more than any Disney sequel that we have talked about thus far. Would you agree with that assessment, Kat?
Well, I have my personal picks for what I consider the worst Disney sequels overall, and I will get into that in future podcasts, but in terms of this one, it's definitely up there. I personally think Savage Sam is worse, just like you said, because of how boring and drawn out it is, but yeah, this film just like it was such a wasted opportunity, and it's just so infuriating to anybody who is a fan of the original movie or of the character Maleficent. It's just, I guess the fact that it could have been better just makes it that much worse. And yeah, I just hate this movie so much, and I'm glad I don't ever have to watch it again. But yeah,
I'm so sorry that you had to watch this 3 times. I'm so sorry.
I do it for you guys, and I do it to myself. So yeah, I'm a glutton for punishment. But yeah, I mean, in terms of whether people should actually see this or not, I would say if you were a fan of the original, yeah, stay away. This is just going to infuriate you like it did us. If you're not a fan, I guess it would be entertaining enough in how bad it is, because we did come up with a good couple of jokes watching this. But overall, yeah, it's just, in and of itself, it's a poorly made movie and a very poor adaptation, and just, unless you want to work yourself up, just, don't watch this. Just don't. Save yourself.
Eric, on the same point about Disney sequels and what I said, what is your opinion? Is this worse than Savage Sam? Is this, I know you have different feelings on the film as a whole, but what do you think?
I mean, I don't really consider Maleficent a sequel per se. I see it more as like a live action remake. But I mean, I probably would have to lean more towards Savage Sam being worse, only because of how boring it is. I mean, yeah, something can be something can be infuriating, but it depends on, well, it depends on myself on what kind of film that I'm more emotionally invested in. But Savage Sam was just, I mean, it was just blah, and it just kind of felt like it kind of went into it. It became an entirely different movie. I mean, not to say Maleficent didn't become an entirely different movie, but I just thought Savage Sam was just more of a letdown. I felt more of a letdown with Savage Sam than I did with Maleficent, because I didn't really have a lot of high expectations per se with Maleficent going into this. Granted, the source material that it's based on. So, but you're getting me thinking about what other bad Disney sequels that I've seen that are horrible, because I'm trying to think, because I don't think I've seen as many as you guys have.
I've
seen quite a few. I mean, there's stuff that we're going to be talking about later down the line, like Hunchback 2, and I'll get to my feelings on those in the future.
Pirates.
Oh yeah.
But as of right now, I still think Savage Sam is top for the worst Disney sequel, and Maleficent is a close second for me. And we'll probably go into ranking them eventually as we go forward in the future. But we'll save that for later down the line. For right now, we've been talking for 2 hours about this, and I think this is fitting for our 50th episode, that we would talk about something that we're so passionate about, and that it just kind of offends us as Disney fans. But overall, we do not care for this film. Before I end us off, I will thank this film for one thing, and that is the John Cena heel turn.
And his name is John C.
'Cause his name is John Cena.
I'm totally gonna edit that picture now.
And I'm gonna edit I'm gonna edit that audio.
Christ.
But with that being said, this is our 50th episode. This episode is as much. This episode isn't just for us. This episode is mainly for you guys who made this happen, and I've talked about this at the beginning, but you guys, your support, your interaction, your love for Disney films and talking about upcoming things, and especially when we started talking about Shaggy Dog Month, which we'll talk about that in a second, but when we started talking about that on the page, like, everyone started giving us suggestions about, like, month themes, like Parent Trap Month and Winnie the Pooh Month, and like all these different things that they want to see from us. And that, while a little bit overwhelming at first, is so incredible to me, because it shows the love that you guys have for this podcast, and that means the world to us, because that makes what we are doing worth all the time and effort, worth all the time that I spend tracking down these films. And it really warms my heart, because this started as a little dinky podcast idea that I had that I did not think would take off. I mean, it just, you guys, the support that you have shown is incredible. It really is.
Absolutely. Like, we appreciate each and every one of you. Like, you're the reason why we continue to do this. Like, it's just, I never thought I'd have people really value my opinion on this sort of thing. I was always the Disney fangirl, and, I've grown up pretty much sheltered and haven't seen a lot of the, big movies. Disney was the thing I knew best, and just to know that there are other people out there who feel the same, who, like, just value my opinion so much, it feels so great. And I just love you guys so much for that. You guys are awesome. Mwah! Love you all. Come on, Eric, show your love.
Mwah. Wave to the people. Blow them kisses.
Coming up in the future, we have a lot of things planned for you guys, and I have taken the time to track a lot of these things down in advance so that we can get them out, in a timely fashion, or possibly get them recorded and edited earlier than we normally do. Next on the docket is going to be another special episode. It's still in the timeline, but it's a little bit earlier than we normally would talk about it. Next time is going to be on St. Paddy's Day week, rather. It's going to be in the time frame of St. Paddy's Day, so we're going to be talking about Darby O'Gill and the Little People, which is a little bit sooner than we would normally have talked about it, but we figured we wanted to do a St. Paddy's Day episode, and it's perfect timing. Like, this is right when this movie takes place, and this is one of the quintessential Disney Irish films. I don't think they have a lot of them aside from Luck of the Irish.
Yeah, I don't think they have much in terms of that. There's not a lot in terms of St. Paddy's Day. But yeah, this one definitely.
So we're going to be talking about that maybe next year, Luck of the Irish. After that, it's going to be, I believe, me and Eric talking about Third Man on the Mountain, which, from what I have seen, because I have checked the film just to see if it looks good, it is about mountain climbing, kind of. Yeah, it's a little bit interesting, and I mean, the copy that I found isn't the best quality sound-wise. I'm probably going to have to jack up the volume a little bit to hear it, but it's like the only copy I could find. But we found it.
Hooray.
After that, it's going to be a Shaggy Dog 2-month marathon, because Shaggy Dog has a lot of films, and we didn't know this until just recently. So there's a 1959 version of the Shaggy Dog. There is the Shaggy DA. There is a TV movie called Return of the Shaggy Dog, which takes place in between those films. There's a 1994 remake, which I could not find, and we will talk about that during that podcast, but essentially, like, these TV movies are extremely rare. I got lucky to even find Return of the Shaggy Dog. And then there's the 2006 with Tim Allen. So there's a lot of films. We're going to be doing one every other week. So for 2 months, we're going to be marathoning all the Shaggy Dog films and taking a look at them. And hopefully you guys will like that and move on after that. I'm not quite sure what's next after that.
The retrospective.
Oh yes. After that is our 1950s retrospective, because we'll finally be done with this era. Our 1940s retrospective seems so long ago. There wasn't that many films to cover at the time, and we got to it pretty quickly, but getting through the 50s has been a long time coming, and so that's going to be the end of one era, and we'll have to move forward after that. We have a lot planned for you guys. Mm-hmm. We have a lot scheduled, and we're looking forward to do a lot more episodes. We're not stopping this train, even when we start hitting like DComs and some of the stranger films, and like we're getting a little bit better at scheduling, and it's getting less hard to find these films. So
yeah, we're coming up on the live action era, the 60s. So many live action stuff. But we got some good animated stuff to look forward to as well. And lots of sequels and remakes and etc.
Mm-hmm. With all of that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. We have a lot planned, and we can't wait to talk to you guys about them all. I'm Zenith Rule.
I'm Kat McBerry.
I'm Y2 Staller.
And this is CNN.
Wait, what?
No, it isn't.
Thank you guys. Have a good one. And just remember, when you remake Disney movies, keep the source material in mind. That's all I ask.
TTFN. Ta-ta for now.
Thank you for watching the Media Meltdown. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome videos. And if you like what you see, show your support on the Patreon page at patreon.com/Media Meltdown. See you all next time on the Media Meltdown.
Zen! Where did you go?
Oh no, your rage killed him.
God! Oh no. We killed our host. Who's gonna edit our podcast now? Damn it, I gotta control my rage better.
See, I knew this was gonna happen. You were gonna get all angry over that climactic scene, but then I tried to transition over to the DVD story, and you killed him. It was too little too late at that point.
What has science done?